Well, folks, a historic day, 7th of January 2023, after 15 rounds of voting, the first time in a century that the Speaker of the House race went beyond one vote. 15 votes, 14-time loser California's Kevin McCarthy is elected Speaker of the House Representative by default. In this final round of voting, the 15th, which took place after Republicans electronically voted to adjourn for the evening at about 10:45 in the evening on the 6th of January, suddenly somebody must have twisted or promised or threatened Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert or someone else, and they rushed down and told McCarthy that we must have the votes, and suddenly there's a flurry of activity, and Republicans, 218 who had voted for a recess until Monday at noon, suddenly they ran down there and filled out slips of red paper, handed over to the clerk to cause confusion and chaos, and the number of Republicans voting to recess dropped from 218 to 155, a disgraceful exercise by these swamp creatures. I'm not opposed to them working through the night. Here, I'm still up at 2:15 in the morning. I don't have an issue with that. 36 years in the Army, I work when I need to and when it's necessary. But the point is that after the vote had closed, they went and changed their vote because they had twisted enough arms and made enough threats to get enough people to withdraw and vote present. So the 15th round, 6 people voted present. That was what was left of the Rebel Alliance: Andy Biggs of Arizona, Lauren Boebert of Colorado, Eli Crane of Arizona, Matt Gaetz of Florida, Good from Virginia, and Rosendale from Montana voted present. Rosendale didn't vote. He initially stepped outside the chamber and then came back and voted present. Those 6 votes, there are 434 members in the House because the Democrat that won died before they could convene. And so 434 members, that vote doesn't get subtracted. You have to have over 50% of the members who are present to vote. So of the 434 votes, 6 members of the Rebel Alliance voted present to get this over with in the end. That lowered the number of people who voted to 428. 428, he had 216. And just like John Boehner in 2015 and Nancy Pelosi in 2021, both of them won the Speaker of the House without a majority of the votes in the House. In this case, once again, 216 votes, not 218, which is normally necessary. So Kevin McCarthy becomes the Speaker of the House of Representatives. The Quislings have won. That would be the traitors who betrayed the Rebel Alliance: Josh Breachin, Oklahoma; Dan Bishop, North Carolina; Michael Cloud, Texas; Andrew Clyde, Georgia; Byron Donalds, Florida; Paul Gosar, Arizona; Anna Paulina Luna, the freshman from Florida; Mary Miller, Illinois; Ralph Norman, South Carolina; Andy Ogles, freshman, Tennessee; Scott Perry, the chairman of the Freedom Caucus, Pennsylvania; Chip Roy from Texas; and Kevin Self from Texas, all of whom said that they would not vote for McCarthy. So all along, the McCarthy camp said that these people were opposing his nomination and selection because it was about ego, it was about airtime, it was about privilege, it was about something they wanted, positions. In the end, when 14 of them betrayed, and along with Victoria Spartz of Indiana, who had voted 8 consecutive times present, in the end, those 15 Republicans turned and voted for McCarthy. And let's see what positions they get. Clearly some dirty, nasty DC deals took place here. So those 14 Quislings who betrayed the Rebel Alliance, it is the time of the traitors. And now we have a rhino sitting in the Speaker of the House position, someone with arrogance to have been defeated 14 times and still stand for the Speaker of the House role, someone who feels that he's owed and obligated that position. Sounds an awful lot like somebody like Nancy Pelosi. So the gravy train of corrupt swamp politics continues in D.C., and Americans get the finger once again. Remember that all of those Democrats and 9 of those Republicans, some of them aren't there anymore, just voted for a $1.7 trillion omnibus bill, in addition to a $6 trillion federal budget that's under a continuing resolution, and buried us with an additional $1.1 trillion in debt for things like $3.6 million to fund the Michelle Obama Trail in Georgia. She's not even from Georgia. $35 million for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. We have no money. Should be giving them money. $2 million to improve coordination in the New York City mayor's office. $1.6 million to, or $1.5 million to repair the Albany, New York City Hall. These people voted for that. So this is a prediction. I will tell you right now, ladies and gentlemen, on the 7th of January, 2:20 in the morning, I'm fresh, I'm clear, and I know exactly what's coming. This, all the promises that were made behind closed doors, all the dirty dealing took place, and all the promises in public made by Kevin McCarthy, it's all nonsense. We will soon see more money poured into Ukraine, taxpayer money to fuel Joe Biden's proxy war in the Ukraine. We will continue to see deficit spending. It is now January. This body has until 30 September to have produced a budget and share it with the Senate so that it can be sent to the president. You want to guarantee there won't be a budget by 30 September from the House? And the House and Senate won't get anything to the president and will wind up a continuing resolution or another omnibus bill before it's all over. Watch and see. That's what's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. That is what's going to happen. The budget will be shameful. The border will not be addressed. We heard some ridiculous virtue signaling thing from Kevin McCarthy after Hakeem Jeffries got through his ludicrous, insulting, race-hustling, and shameful speech, acting as if he's talking from the pulpit as he introduced Kevin McCarthy. Then McCarthy got with his ridiculous speech, going on and on about Lincoln, and going on and on about a painting of George Washington crossing the Delaware, trying to turn into a multicultural painting. Stop nonsense. Then he talked about going to the border for their first meeting. We're not going to see that. We're not going to see that. We're going to see earmarks. And the things that were promised in this are fascinating. Reportedly, according to Politico, I believe it was, the following were promised as concessions from Kevin McCarthy to get the votes and to get people to vote present. Only one House member needs to file a motion to vacate the chair. In other words, a vote of no confidence, as you'd find in a parliamentary system. That has always been the rule in the House, and Nancy Pelosi shamelessly, because she was at risk of being overthrown by the squad, she created a rule which said you had to have 5. So that's in there. But that really doesn't help the American people. That just helps people in the party who have ego, who want to get rid of the speaker. Freedom Caucus members they have a few seats on the House Rules Committee that will allow those members to leverage certain criteria behind voting for bills. Most Americans have no idea what this is. It means nothing to them, but it can affect legislation, so it could be something useful that came out of this. Voting on a bill setting term limits for members of Congress. This is a complete waste of time. All it is an effort for Republicans and conservatives to get reelected in their districts, because whatever bill gets passed on term limits by the House will die in the Senate. And even if it didn't die in the Senate, it would never get to Joe Biden. He would never sign it, and there wouldn't be 2/3 to override him. So that's just virtue signaling. This is what we held out for. Individual votes on each of the 12 appropriations bills and excluding earmarks from such bills. If indeed we see the earmarks taken out, that would be the best improvement in the House of Representatives in 50 years. But I don't hold my breath that's going to happen. A vote on legislation surrounding border security. Once again, just like the term limits, this is nonsense. Even if it gets to the Senate, it will die there. Even if it gets through the Senate, Joe Biden will never sign it. And this is, again, virtue signaling by Republicans looking for votes, not trying to change things for the betterment of this country. A 72-hour notice from the release of legislation before voting on it. That's also ludicrous. A 4,155-page omnibus bill. You need more than 72 hours to read it. You need about a week to read it. So bills should have a week to read it. And then finally, this was a concession, a vote on a balanced budget amendment. Once again, empty-headed virtue signaling by Republicans. It means nothing. The Senate will not vote on it, and the president will never sign on it. So ridiculous, ridiculous, ridiculous. Anyway, folks, and finally, a comment about Donald John Trump. For people who sycophantically love Donald John Trump, I voted for him begrudgingly in 2016 and without hesitation in 2020. I think he's a cad, he's a bore, but he was the single most conservative one-term president in the history of this country and did amazing things for this country despite treasonous conduct by members of the Democratic caucus in the Senate especially, and also by the Republican caucus behind his back, undermining the building of the wall, undermining foreign policy, lying about the president, spreading lies, fake impeachments. That said, Donald Trump has screwed America repeatedly. With his whining in Georgia after the events of 2020, instead of going down there and campaigning for Loeffler and for Perdue, two lackluster candidates who could have used the help from him, we lost the Senate. And this time he backed idiots like Mehmet Oz, who had snowball's chance in hell of winning against, the mentally incapacitated John Fetterman. How do you lose to John Fetterman? He cost us the Senate again with his backing. And now he screwed us. We have Kevin McCarthy, a rhino, 16-year swamp creature who is a get-along, go-along, bend with the will, and will work with Democrats to get votes and will give them things, wait on it, like amnesty for criminal aliens who have invaded our country and violated our sovereignty. Wait for it. Kevin McCarthy talks a big game. Let's see. It's another John Boehner, another Paul Ryan, another Dennis Hastert, another Nancy Pelosi. That's what we have in our midst. So don't hold your breath that things are going to get better here in America, folks. We've been betrayed by Trump in this matter by backing McCarthy and getting half the Freedom Caucus to go along with the McCarthy nomination. Had Trump said, don't back McCarthy, McCarthy would have been dead in the water, and there would have been 60 votes against him in the first round. But instead, it was just 20 or 19, and McCarthy held on knowing that he had Trump's back, Trump had his back. And once again, we're betrayed by the swamp. It includes, in this case, the beloved Donald John Trump. And sorry if Trump lovers hate me saying that, that's simply a fact. It doesn't mean I wouldn't vote for Trump in 2024. Doesn't mean that I don't support Trump. It's just a statement of fact. He stabbed us in the back, just like he did with Mehmet Oz, just like he did not going and campaigning for Don Bolduc, just like he did not going and campaigning for Herschel Walker, just like he did not going and campaigning for Adam Laxalt, the one race we clearly could have won. All he did was campaign for Kari Lake, and we saw what happened there. So thanks a lot for that one. Anyway, folks, on this date, the 7th of January, 2023, we have a House, and they will send their bill, their note over to the president. They are available for any communication he seeks to share with them. And that's it. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. And God bless America. And we are screwed. So screwed. The best we can hope for from this Congress under this Republican speaker is maybe some investigations into the abuse of the Constitution by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, by the Department of Homeland Security, by the Trump regime, by the Biden regime, state bureaucrats, the FBI, and the federal prosecutor's office abusing their positions and undermining American liberty and violating the Constitution, colluding with tech companies. That might be the best we can get out of this, and maybe some investigations, some virtue-seeking investigations into the spicy cough, but that will go nowhere. They talk big about taking on China, but of course these people, including Kevin McCarthy, have been there, most of them, in the 2 decades when they facilitated the rise of China, its intellectual theft of it's the theft of our intellectual property, it's copyright infringements, it's violation of World Trade Organization rules, and the offshoring of our industry and everyone else's industry to China, making it the workshop of the world for a few points of profit margin. They are responsible for it. They facilitated making it easy for companies to offshore and go to China and not conducting serious counterintelligence investigations while the FBI is hunting down Americans over abortion clinics and hunting down Americans over fraudulent insurrections instead of hunting down the real insurrectionists and dealing with the Chinese communist spies in our midst who are stealing our intellectual property. Anyway, that's it, folks. Maybe a few investigations. I don't hold out much hope. I expect to see more money poured in Ukraine, the debt continue, the budget not be delivered on time, the border not taken seriously, and earmarks probably will find their way back in the bill. Thank you, Kevin McCarthy. Congratulations to you and to the rhinos in the Republican caucus and the lapdogs who stood up and clapped like trained seals at his selection and every time his name was mentioned. Take care, folks. Pray for America. The Republic is close to an end. Perhaps.